Good morning, everyone. It's a brand new week. It's Monday, August 18th. It's Ben Buckner and Dan Bossy with AgResource Company in Chicago. Still all about supply. Grain market's shedding a little bit of premium this morning. I think we're all prepared for Pro Farmer to kick off in earnest this week and probably going to find some very big numbers. I don't think that will be a surprise, but we'll be determining just how big is big when we see those, daily pod count numbers and yield checks from Pro Farmer. But that's kind of what we found, and so we'll jump right into it. But we spent 3 full days in the car, 2 teams, dozens and dozens of stops. You're probably aware that we also found pretty solid record yield potential. But Dan, we've calculated the data. Do you want to jump in to tell us exactly what we found from our 3-day tour?
Yeah, Ben, let's do that. And if it looks a little dark behind us, it's because it's raining so hard in Chicago right now. We are getting a fair amount of rain, and so the skies are dark, and that's why as you look behind us, there's not a lot of light. As we went through the AgResource crop tour, there were several surprises. The biggest surprise to me was, again, these ear numbers. I mean, we had ear numbers in both Illinois and Iowa that were up 1,900 ears from last year. That's a record. So you can look there on the sheet. It's highlighted in the blue squares, 32,808 ears per acre. It was really hard to find a blank stalk. So what you do is you walk into a field, you measure 30 feet. You, of course, count both sides of the row. You try to find how many ears there are and then take it back to a per acre basis. And so, again, very heavily populated with ears, no blanks or very few out there. Our kernels per ear were 674, record large. So when you combine the two, you really end up with a special yield result. And so the ear counts and the pod counts both struck us. We think Pro Farmer will find the same this week. And that's what really stuck out in our research. You can see backwards here, we have ear counts looking backwards to 2015. This is what we found. It correlates rather well with NASS as we get into the September report. There's always ear loss, or gains, if you will, by October and then the final. But this is the starting point that we feel for the September report that works very well. As you take this forward and you kind of correlate it and put it on a graph, here's what it looks like. You can see here, that's the implied two-state ear counts and why it is so large. So, there's been a lot of talk about, well, it's been warm at night, and it has been across the eastern Midwest, but the kernel counts are high. Maybe the kernel depths aren't as big as we'd like, but there's so doggone many ears out there that it's still going to give us a very big yield, regardless of maybe what some of those ears would weigh. So this is what really comes forward in my mind. When you start talking and looking forward to what it means for yield for these two states, we're using 90,000 kernels per bushel. Now, if I move this down to 86, which is more normal, I'm using the 90,000 because of the warm temperatures. We still come up that Illinois and Iowa yields are probably anywhere between 11 and 13 bushels too low from NASA's report that came out last Tuesday. So again, a very big crop. We think as Pro Farmer gets into the field, they're going to find these same ear counts. It's hard to avoid. We also did not see any tassel wrap. We tried like our best to look at the hybrids that had it, and we just couldn't find any tassel wrap pollination issues. Now, there's always an ear here or there that you can find a pollination issue with, but again, nothing substantial, nothing that we believe will harm yield. Some rust, if you will, southern rust in Iowa may trim their yield slightly. When you get to the dent phase, you can cut yield maybe anywhere around 5 to 7%. But I don't think it's going to be a big deal as we look forward. As you think about this year's crop, USDA is projecting it at 16.7 billion bushels. Now, you can see that that's up 1.8 billion bushels from last year. If our crop tour is correct in Iowa and Illinois, we would add to that total. It's potential that this year's crop could be up 2 billion bushels from last year and give us a combined starting point of 19 billion bushels for the United States. It's a monster. I think we're very comfortable in saying that. And so the market has a job to do here. Even though export demand is relatively strong, we expect ethanol demand to be generally steady, though again, we will see some cut into that from sorghum. But as you stand back, this is just a monster crop. You don't chew through these kind of crops by 1 or 2 days. It takes an extended period of time at low prices to really build that demand base to get forward. But I wanted to refocus everybody on the crop size of the United States because it's so important. And then when you look at the individual states that came out from NASS last Tuesday, we've got 9 states that are producing corn records. So that's also a record from the August report, and the amount of states that are producing a record. You can see them there, whether it's Iowa or Illinois, Minnesota, South Dakota, some of the Carolinas. You can see all of the states there. They've got that little hash mark, if you will, the pound mark that gives them that indication. But this is a big, big corn crop. So if you think about the back end of the corn market, whether it's December, I'm not looking for it to get much above, let's call it 410 to 420 any day soon. And selling the back end, letting it come down to where the cash markets will be key going forward. I think that's the structure as we see the corn market today. You can see it a little bit in sorghum basis levels already in the plains, where we expect there will be storage dislocations. You can see in this graphic here that we're already trading $1 under, as much as $1.20 under recently in terms of spot sorghum bids in central Kansas. Now, the Kansas corn crop also has record potential. When you look at the sorghum additionality, you are going to be straining storage supplies or availability within Kansas. We're already seeing that in some areas as basis levels are starting to drop across the Midwest, as elevators are understanding the amount of storage that will be needed for these 2 crops, sorghum and, of course, corn, combined with soybeans going forward. Last thing we want to leave you with, Ben, is I'm still very concerned about China. Still no interest or even asking for bids from the United States Gulf or PNW. We put this graphic together. You can see this is an export chart month by month showing you where China shows its biggest demand. Notice that we come in September, China usually buys 1.5 to 2.5 million tons of soybeans, ships them out in September. But when we get to October, November, December, that's our main focus in terms of U.S. exports before our South American friends kick in and really steal our thunder. So if we've lost September and October, that may be as much as, let's call it 10 or 11 million metric tons of U.S. soybean demand, which USDA is not fully reflecting in their balance sheets. So I wanted to point out that we see corn as a supply bear market, but I'm worried about soybean demand from China and being a demand bear market going forward, just because we can't afford to miss this export demand and the shipment pace that would come from China. Already the CIF market on soybeans has slid to 38 cents over. That's down about 39 cents in the last couple of weeks. And so the CIF market at the Gulf is showing you what the lack of Chinese demand really means going forward. So back to you, Ben. That's a little summary of the tour. We'll dive a little deeper into our research today at AgResource and talking about our crop tour and what Pro Farmer will find. But I think this week the Pro Farmer tour is going to find a big population on ear counts for corn. Back to you, Ben.
Yeah, and doing the calculations at the end of the tour, very good stuff, Dan, and kind of found what we thought we would find. And maybe to some extent, the dog has caught the car. We got a very, very big yield estimate from NASS. But I think what you pointed out is just think about this moving forward in bushel numbers. The size of the pile that needs to move, that's not changing. And so cash markets are our concern. And we're going to kind of fine tune this. We'll get into Pro Farmer's accuracy, our tour results, what regional production means for basis this week. So a lot of good risk management stuff. $1 gets you in for 30 days. But I think we're still focused on supply for another couple of weeks. But thereafter, like you've mentioned, it's demand. Is it good? How fast can we clear these inventories? So as usual, all the best in the markets today. We'll be back tomorrow with a fresh update from what we see in the markets.